the thing that threw me is
Hi, everyone. Welcome to Books, Business, and Brunch on this beautiful Monday afternoon, early afternoon. Hope everyone's having a great day and had a great weekend. I am Leslie Cottrell, and I am joining you today in our Books, Business, and Brunch broadcast. And Joan will be joining us in just a couple of minutes. So if we stay tuned, she'll be popping in. But we wanted to talk today about using your book to inspire social change. Now, what a great time to be having that conversation, regardless of what your affiliations are. We all have specific feelings about the things that are going on in our country. Yesterday, my pastor described it as a dumpster fire, and I can't disagree with him. So, this is a great opportunity for us to talk about the influence, the potential influence of writing your book and bringing it out into the marketplace to use it as an opportunity to create change in our world. But before we talk about that, I did want to touch base a little bit about the collaboration that Joan and I have launched. Some of you have heard about The Second Wind, which is an anthology of women coming together to talk about their experiences going through some sort of change, some sort of catalyst and challenge in their life. And instead of just accepting it, instead of just lying down and letting things be, they chose to use that opportunity to create a very specific change in their lives. Maybe it is from an illness or the death of someone close to them, or the loss of a job or change of a job. And they've used that as an opportunity to recreate their lives, recreate their way of being. And I'll tell you, some of the stories of the women who are joining with us will just absolutely blow your mind. And I bring that up because we do still have an opportunity for a few more women to join into that. If that is something that you're interested, be sure to connect with us on our Facebook page, which is Books to Business and Beyond, and let us know of your interest. And there is still a little bit of time left to get in on that. You could catch up. We started a little bit already, but you could still catch up and join in that experience. So just connect with us there. Another great thing that has happened recently, we had a webinar last year about a collaboration that we have launched with Django Degree from Wrote by Me. If you're not familiar with that site, it is just a really powerful engine for authors. If you're not familiar with it, you really need to get to know him and understand what this is all about. But it is an opportunity to have his team create a landing page for you, and that itself is free. And then the paid version of it gives you all sorts of diagnostics that you can utilize to understand where people are coming from that buy your book. It also gives you the opportunity to capture the email list, capture the emails of those that are purchasing your book. And that's something that you'll never get from Amazon. This is a great way to build your business out. And if you are a published author or you're going to be a published author, it is a business. A lot of people don't think of it like that, but it really is a business. You need to promote yourself. You need to promote your work. You need to have a fan base that will stand by you and be interested in what you do, not only with your first book, but your second and your third and your fourth book. And the best way to do that is to create and to set up a business from the outset. And using this Wrote by Me website is a great way to do that. And you can get more information on that also in our Facebook group, Books to Business and Beyond. So if you haven't joined with us there, be sure to do that. And I encourage you, if you're not a member, if you haven't joined or subscribed to our YouTube channel, if you would do that, it would be great. Just hit the button and subscribe, and you can get all of our weekly broadcasts. Joan is coming to you every day this month at 8 a.m. Eastern Time with Jesus, Joan, and Journal. And those have been such powerful broadcasts. So feel free, please do subscribe to our YouTube channel. So, as I mentioned before, today we are talking about utilizing your book to inspire social change. And honestly, whatever type of book you're writing, your nonfiction book, it can be used to inspire social change. A memoir certainly can. A memoir that is combined with maybe poetry or instructional type of book, a how to guide. These are all potential platforms to inspire change in our society. And one of the things that I thought of first was how the emotional connection that happens when you read some nonfiction works. It does something within you. It makes you realize that you want to do more than just read, that you want to get involved. Perhaps you want to join a group, or you want to write your own book, or you want to sign a petition that you wouldn't have otherwise, whatever it may be. But those emotional connections can make the difference between just reading something and knowing something and actually taking an action step. It mobilizes communities. It can foster collective efforts by that emotional connection. And I'm thinking of the book I Am Malala specifically by Malala. Here's Joan.
Hi guys.
Welcome, Joan. We're glad to have you.
Thank you.
We were talking about some of the things that have been going on with us recently and the anthology, but now we've started to talk about how you can utilize a book to really inspire social change and action. So I was talking about the book I Am Malala by Malala Yousafzai. And if you're not familiar with that story, she's a young woman in Pakistan who was using her voice to try and inspire change for young women's education. And she, as a young girl, stood up to the Taliban and took them on so she could keep speaking her convictions. And she was actually shot in the head for that and survived it and went on to create a worldwide social momentum, social change for getting people aware of how important it is for young girls to have the freedom to become educated. And, you don't have to have something that extreme to connect with people, but it is such an important thing to do. And one thing that I also want to mention is if when you are writing a book, whether it is your memoir, whether it is a how-to guide, or anything that you have learned or that you have overcome or that you have changed, to always cite your resources in your book, because that's how people can take specific action. If you cite how to get involved, if you cite links to organizations and action plans, these are the things that people can read your book. And then when they get to the end of the book, you have given them the roadmap to how to take the next step to get involved themselves. So it's not just those emotional connections, which are so important, but take the next step as an author and always include the resources that were important to you, that created change within you, so you can pay that forward and make it easy for other people to then take those same steps.
Wow,
So,
that is, listen, that book, I have it right there. I'm looking at it right now. I Am Malala. And what an incredible book. There's a movie. There was a movie about it too. And I think I watched the movie before I got the book.
uh,
And the movie just it blew my mind. And I think I bought the book because I watched the movie. The movie was just it's incredible. But on that note, Leslie, I am reminded, and I'm glad you brought that up. I am reminded of years ago when they put into law this whole thing about domestic violence because of so many women who were literally telling their stories either about overcoming of domestic violence or knowing family members that were killed for domestic violence. There was a big football star who had shot his wife and killed her, and subsequently something happened to the baby, and the baby was either crippled. I can't remember the full story, but the girl's mother still till this day takes care of that baby. And he was a big football player, like star right here in Charlotte. And they have a fund for him. But there was something put into law. And instead of just saying domestic violence, the word domestic abuse covers violence, emotional, mental, like all of the abuse together. Because before that word became kind of like law, when you hear domestic violence, you only think about a man hitting a woman or a woman hitting a man, and not
Right.
realizing that all of the things like emotional abuse and the fear that is incited in women because of the things men do. There was another one too that fell under that law, and it is the internet, the virtual. There's this abuse for online, right?
Yeah.
There's a word, there's a term for that. I can't recall it now. My brain is. I just spoke to the doctor, so my brain is all fried. But those were things. Books were written. People talked about their story, and those are some of the things that can make changes, right? Social change, because if more than one people look at the Me Too movement, right?
Right.
That was something that became a social change because people were talking about it, books were written about it, movie stars experienced, abusive kind of, SA within the confines of their work. So books or stories or letters or blog posts or anything written can really impact social change for the better. So it's good to share the story and not hide it.
It is. And, I hope that what we're talking about today works as a kind of a catalyst for those that are thinking, you know, I, what difference can my story make?
Mhm.
I might be the only one that thinks this way. I might be the only one that's experienced this particular thing. And so, what difference can telling that story make? But when you think that way,
Right.
think back to something that you have read or heard in your life that you completely identified with, that you could say to yourself, I didn't know. I didn't know that there was someone who's experienced just what I have. And what a blessing that could have been to you in your life because you saw how they recovered or you saw what steps they took specifically to get out of a difficult situation. And from that, you learned perhaps you were able to utilize those steps in your own life. Well, that would never have happened if that person didn't take that step.
Horrible.
That person didn't have the boldness to say, I'm going to do this no matter what. And I hope that inspires others who tend to sit on their story. We always at Victoria Shoe Press, we always say the world needs to hear your story. And
Right.
it's absolutely true. This is how we begin to create movements of change is by one person having the boldness to write that story and to put it out there.
That is so true. And you talked about, Malala's story, and really that also is a level of abuse too. And bullying, that falls under a whole lot of stuff, right? Bullying, making women feel as if they are less than men. And with her, just her courage, right,
Yeah.
is where that took a big turn. And we talk about domestic violence, but there are things like bullying, right, that if you know that somebody's experiencing that, or you experienced it, or your child experienced it, coming forth and speaking about it. And this is why a book is so powerful, Leslie, because speaking about it is one thing, right? You say it, it goes out in the air, and there is nothing recorded unless it's being taped, right? But if you put that in a document, if you put that in a book, if you put that on paper, if you type it out in a letter, and all of those things, as long as it's written, can really stand the test of time, because the court and the people who are the lawmakers love to go back to the evidence. Well, where was it written? When was the first time you recorded it? When was the first interaction? What did you say to him? What did they say back to you? Right. And if it's not in some kind of document, they can tell you are not telling the truth.
Right.
That is why it is so powerful. And although our topic says your book, but it's your written word, really,
Yeah.
right? Your written word can stand the test of time. And that is what the courts, or what the local government, or, the municipal can use to really make changes. So it's important to understand that your words have power, but your book is even more powerful.
It absolutely is. When I was a little girl, I remember um, my mother found some little note that I had written that she didn't like, and she was a little upset by it. I can't even remember what it was. And I remember her saying to me, remember that you don't want to ever write anything down that you don't want the whole world to know. Now,
Wow.
she meant that as kind of a discipline, but I remember thinking at the time, I just did what you did. Wow, that's the most powerful thing. That's the most powerful thing she's ever said to me.
Oh my
Yeah.
God.
But it's so true. It's so true. And you're right. It is the recording via writing that has the power, has the staying power. And we're talking about, of course, evidence, but that is so true, and it's something to encourage someone who may be in a situation like that to make sure that you document everything, date everything.
Yeah, document, write it down, because it can really make a difference and it takes just one person. It takes one person with the courage to say, I need to bring this forward. I need to make a stand on this one. I remember 2014, 2014, that was the year. It was like my 24th year with my corporate job, and as a executive vice president, the company had given me a choice to choose a nonprofit in um, my work area, right? So they gave all of the executive, whatever we were called, regional directors, an opportunity to choose one nonprofit that we wanted to give, because the company was giving each of us $20,000 to give to a
Wow.
nonprofit. Yeah.
Mm.
And at this time, I hid the whole domestic violence thing from my colleagues because I didn't want them to know. But when I was asked to send this money, who do I want to give this check to? The first thing that came to mind in Charlotte was a place called Safe Alliance, which is a domestic violence shelter. And I had already understood, just from kind of doing my own research within the city, that they had a 17-bed shelter
Mm.
for women and children, right? And was overflowing. People were on wait lists. It was so bad that they were only taking women who experienced abuse of like the worst, right? So women whose lives were threatened, women who had gunshot wounds, women who were stabbed. So you had to be in really dire situation for them to, because now they'd start to separate who can come, just because there was only 17 rooms, right? And so if it was emotional abuse or verbal abuse or other kind of abuse like that, threats and stuff like that, they had to stay. because they weren't considered violent enough or detrimental enough to go to the shelter. And
Mm,
so that kind of tugged at my heart because I know that there are times when verbal abuse is even more, threats and intimidation can even be worse. Because I remember this one lady said her husband never hit her, but whenever he wanted her to feel belittled, he would just come and put the gun on the kitchen counter where she's cooking and just stare at her while the gun is on the counter. And she said, I would freeze, right? And
mm.
so that tugged at my heart. So I knew that I wanted to donate my $20,000 to that shelter. And so I connected with a shelter. I told them what I wanted to do. You know, they came to my office. We sat down, and the whole thing made the news, Leslie. So it made the newspaper, it made the national news. I had makeup artists coming in to do my makeup because the cameras were rolling and this
Wow.
whole thing. And we donated $20,000 to that nonprofit domestic violence shelter. And it was such an incredible opportunity because um they expanded the shelter. So they went from a 17-bed shelter to a 56-bed shelter.
Oh my goodness, what a change. Wow.
That
Wow.
was the power. And of course, our money was not the only money they got, but it was the biggest amount that they had gotten. And so they were able to make all of the refurbished, they redid it, they made it beautiful, state of
Mm.
the art kitchen and all of the stuff because they were like Lowe's had donated to the kitchen and things like that, right?
Oh, nice.
But it was so powerful for me. So going back to the topic that we're talking about, right? Um, your voice, your words, you as that one person can start something and that can snowball into something magnificent, right? Because every time I hear now about this shelter here in Charlotte, I remember that as a result of our organization, the company that I work for, and me choosing them as the choice, how much that money impacted their facility to go
Mhm.
from 17-bed shelter to a 56-bed shelter. That's like 3 times the
3
size
times, almost, yeah.
yeah,
Wow, that's amazing.
that it held.
Yeah,
So, yeah.
and I think that,
I
we have to talk about, um, how you need to have a strong core right now in our society to say some things, to write some things.
right.
But it's no less important than it's ever been. We have become so polarized in our country that now it is very difficult to speak out and not be abused online
Mhm.
or somebody
Bullied.
somebody yes, somebody was talking about losing 800 followers in one day because she spoke out in a conservative way about something that had happened and spoke up, and bang, she lost 800 followers. And how important is that really? Obviously,
Right,
that's much less important than being bullied or
right.
abused. But
Yeah,
it is making people stop and think once, twice, three times. Do I really want to say that? Do I really want to put myself out there? And just know that it is as important as it's ever been to
yeah.
speak about your values, not to be incendiary, but to continue to realize that we, at least for now, we are a free country and we need to speak about our values. We need to not shy away from talking about the things that are important to us in across the board.
Yeah, and also this is your lived experience. Like you should never be um, you know, or you should never feel like you can't write about what you experience, right?
Right.
And so a lot of times I know that people have books to write, but because family members are still alive, their parents are still alive, siblings are still alive, they are afraid to tell their story, right? And I would encourage you that if that story is going to make a change, if that story is going to be a difference maker in your community, with even within your family dynamic, because what I know is that a lot of people hide the story of their childhood because they don't want their children to know about what they experience. But if you hide it, you are preventing the knowledge from your children who may just experience the same thing you experience, but
Right.
because you never shared it with them, they didn't know how to protect themselves from it. So, yeah, you might say, I don't want my children to know what I experienced. I don't want them to know what I went through. I want to keep that from them. But if you keep that from them, you can't protect them from what may happen to them, because there's something about a cycle that sometimes just visits us within the bloodline.
Yeah,
It
you're just allowing that generational trauma to
There you go.
perpetuate through a whole new generation.
A whole new generation.
Yeah.
So tell the story. And if you feel like you don't want to talk it, write it in a journal, and read it to your children or let them read it. Like, if you feel some type of way about sharing the story, and especially if your kids are adults, like, or,
Mm,
teenage, like, I wouldn't say to tell it to a 9-year-old or a 10-year-old, but if they get to 12, 13, preteen, start to tell them, because it's crazy how many things happen to children at that age. It's an exploratory age. They're getting, into becoming a woman, becoming a man, and they need to understand how to protect themselves and what can happen, even in the dynamics of family,
that's
even
right.
in the dynamics of family.
Right.
All right. So, anything else, Leslie?
I think that's it. I hope this helps someone to tell their story today.
Yeah, absolutely. And just have the power and the courage to know that your story, your book, your letter, your journal, can really incite social change, or encourage social change, or help your community, your family, your state, the nation
The
make a
nation.
change
Yeah.
for the better. Also, we're in this kind of a political kind of a upheaval. Awareness is happening, right? Don't shy away from speaking up. Don't shy away from documenting things. Don't shy away from writing things down. I always say that if you keep a journal, you have a book.
That's
You have a
right.
book. If
Mhm.
you write in a journal, I don't care if you're writing motivational things in your journal. I don't care if it's a gratitude journal. I don't care if it's a prayer journal. If you start writing consistently in your book, you have a book. All you got to do is get it edited and published. That's it.
True.
All right. Well, I think
Don't edit it yourself.
right. Don't edit it yourself. Right, right, right. Well, I think that's it from Books, Business, and Brunch. We hope you enjoy this episode. You can find us on YouTube. So if you are not yet following us on our YouTube channel, please go ahead and just click the subscribe button and be a part of our YouTube channel. There's a lot of wisdom, knowledge, and power over on that YouTube page. So go ahead and
Mhm.
just go through
Right.
our playlist. There's some training there. There is, Jesus Jonan Journal. There's Author Spotlight. There is Books, Business, and Brunch. There's a lot of things out there on our YouTube page. So go ahead and subscribe to us and like our page. And we will see you next week, same time here with Leslie and myself. So bye for now from Books, Business, and Brunch. God
Bye-bye.
bless you, and we'll see you soon.